I visited every one of our teams around the country this year already. And I can tell you, every one of our teams, I've never seen such more dedicated, committed, sharper people representing our clients at one given time.
And that's really something that we value more than anything here, is that people aren't stuck, that they're not limited, that they're not looking through, as I mentioned, that screen, that this is it, this is all we can do, because that's what really thwarts any type of growth or improvement inside of a company.
Welcome back to the Trelevate podcast.
Hey, what's happening?
Come on,
let's go.
Great
couple
day.
Weeks, man. Missed everybody.
I know. That's going to be good. So, hey, today we are talking about really a high level of thinking of what Trelevate does, why we're successful, the strategies in place, the verticals. I'd like to describe it as unlimited opportunity. So we're moving in that direction. But first, before we go into it, it was just recently Memorial Day weekend. How is it for you? What did you and your family do?
Well, when you got kids, there's always an adventure. So, obviously school just let out. So now it's about getting into the summer swing. And for us, we just came off a big baseball tournament. So they pulled some elite teams from actually multiple states. So we spent the better part of the holiday weekend in Flagstaff. So the weather was great, great baseball, made it all the way to the final day and played a top team. We actually played the team that won the championship. Lost by 1 run, but that's life. I mean, you can work real hard, get to the end, but what'd you learn? How did you grow? And to make it that far, playing at such a high level was very rewarding. So great group of kids, great coaches. My hat's off to the Dirtbag organization, doing an awesome job. And just some great parents. There's nothing like spending time with people that you enjoy. So we had a great weekend and a great time with the kids. How about you? What'd you do?
Oh man, celebrated my sister's birthday. That was a big win. So turned 26. Got to celebrate her. We went out on the water, enjoyed. We got behind the boat, did some surfing, some skimboarding. It was fun. I attempted a backflip actually. It wasn't successul.
Yeah. Was you trying to land back on the surfboard?
No, I just went up in the air.
Yeah,
just sent it.
Didn't work.
I got
Nice thing is the landing's typically not too bad.
Water's not a bad thing.
As long as the board doesn't come back and hit you in the head.
That's
It's fun.
That's right. Well, Ryan, let's get into it. I know our audience is excited to hear about today. So, in life, there's a few things that really make your journey well.
Yeah.
And that is from learning from really wise people. And your life, you've learned from a lot of wise people, and now you're passing that on to others. So I'm excited to hear just the lessons you've learned and all that looks like.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. It's so often we're just pursuing, and never get the chance to stop for just a minute and actually turn back around and say, how am I able to share what I've learned with other people, right? And if it's a bit of information, if it's a way to look at things different, or it's just a new approach to work on yourself. So much of our potential stems from the way that we look at a situation, right? And I have a really good friend who's been really kind of feeding into that, the screen that you look through things will really produce the outcome in terms of where things can go, either in a career, in a relationship, in a pursuit. And, those screens are really important that you monitor what you're looking through. So it's great to turn back around and share with others what we're learning here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Trelevate, we're doing many different things.
Yeah.
And kind of, I would describe them as verticals,
Yeah.
Many different verticals that we work in, the services that we provide. We're all across from internet to fiber, from energy to help talent. How do you keep all those strategies, services in line? What keeps them unified?
I mean, it all comes down to great people. You got to have great people.
That's a good answer.
If you got the right people, everything's possible. But, as I go farther, in this journey, it comes also down to their ability to look at a situation and the limitations, right? Because I think for so many people, if they're just working for a company with no root or no end game. Where are they trying to go with it? What are they trying to learn or grow into? That's what holds so many people back. I think that's where complacency and frustration really start to set in. And that's really something that we value more than anything here, is that people aren't stuck, that they're not limited, that they're not looking through, as I mentioned, that screen,
Right.
that this is it, this is all we can do. Because that's what really thwarts any type of growth or improvement inside of a company. So, again, people, you got to have great people, and then you just got to have process and resources for people to grow and create value. And that's those are just some really neat things I think we believe in, but also we really try to live them out. And that's what's allowing us to get into a lot of different types of opportunities, right? To service many different types of verticals. To your point, a company's product, like when you think about what companies produce or create, right, they have to then take that concept to market, right? And they'll build out a go-to-market strategy. Here's how we're going to get that product to market or that service to market. There's a lot of ways to get people's attention. There's a lot of ways, be digital, commercials, direct phone calls, email, all these different strategies that companies do to disrupt or attract their market segment or their addressable market's attention. And, at the end of the day, we're all the same, right? We're people, right? So the way we view information, but the way in which we decide to respond or react to that information, that's really what Trelevate, when you boil it all down, we don't create the product or the service. We create the vehicle for that message to get in front of the customer. And that's our widget. That's what we focus on. So when I mentioned it's about people, the right people change everything. The sales process to get the product or service to market, that's just about really refining and defining what that methodology needs to look like. And those are, when you boil down the two services that we really provide, that's what we help companies do. Great people, a streamlined process that can be replicated and is predictable. And when you put those two together, magic. That's what we provide the marketplace.
So you're really creating much more of like a backbone, or even like the basket that your tools, your services, your verticals can fall into to ship it in any direction.
That's it. So learning, again, going through that process, to really serve the market well, you have to go through, a very thorough, review or discovery on their product, their service, their addressable market. Those are all things that we do. It's just all very standard business practice. But then it's really, okay, well, once that knowledge is put, to your point, in a basket, right? Well, then we can say, what's the right type of person that embodies representing what that brand or what's in that basket needs to showcase to the world?
Well,
because that smile, that face, that attitude, that message that comes out from our team is what either can build a brand or it can destroy a brand.
Right.
And that's where constant monitoring, constant refinement, constant inspection is just so critical. And that's really what we're constantly working on. Work with the right people and develop a process that becomes predictable in the marketplace, and you really create something special for the customers that you serve.
That's awesome. Hey, just pivoting just a little bit, I think about how Trelevate is so effective and strategic in all that we do.
Yeah.
And the different verticals and services that we just talked about, your guys' messaging, the right people, how you find people, how you train them, the type of environment that you create, the messaging, even the perspective that people have.
Yeah.
You were talking about how there's a difference between how people have perspective when they view opposition and that screen that could be in front of them, right? What is the benefit, all that together, what's the benefit that people get out of partnering with an organization like Trelevate? What are they getting that no one else has?
Well, a great question. I think it always comes down to the audience. So from, clients that we partner with, I always believe there has to be a very holistic balance in the way two organizations operate so that they really complement one another, right? If I don't value what you do, no matter how much we work together, it's not going to work out the way it could, right? I have to value your services. Likewise, you have to respect my product or my service or my concept, because if you don't respect it, how are you going to represent it, right? So it's a balance. So the right type of discovery, when you go through, almost look at it like a quote unquote an interview, and you really interview one another based upon, what their product does, what value does it create in the marketplace, how does it differentiate? In other words, stand out from everything else, right? Would I use it? Do I believe in it? Is it something that would be valuable from my eyes? If I don't see that, we can't build a great team around it, right? Because again, as an organization, if you're going to really protect Trelevate's reputation, which we've developed a reputation for really not just creating brand awareness, but really improving that brand. And this is an industry, quote unquote, net promoter score. In other words, if let's say this is your business, how likely are you to go refer me to someone else? That becomes a net promoter score. In other words, you would be willing to tell someone else about the quality of our service, the quality of what we do. When you do that, that net promoter score goes up indefinitely.
Okay, so Ryan, unpack this net promoter score.
Yes.
So it's the likelihood of someone to say they're likely to promote you to another business.
To someone else, yes.
Either in a referral, or is this to say you need to sign with their business, or is this a reputation builder?
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, the idea behind this is something large companies typically monitor, inspect, and always strive to have a high net promoter score, right? If we, again, let's put a hypothetical together. We're talking about your product, your service. If our team at Trelevate is out there representing the brand and we do it right, I always believe it's not the volume of customers that will say yes or I'm interested in a day, even though every company wants the new customer, new revenue stream, that's how they measure success.
Sure.
If you don't measure what's going on underneath the service, quality of the message, the experience that call it customer has in the process of learning about the product. If that customer doesn't have a great experience, they're never going to consider or create the reason to buy. So we have to educate the customer. We have to ask the right questions. We have to understand deeper their needs and understand if the product or the service is the right fit. If we've done that, we've educated the market. So whether you're interested in buying right now or not, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is that you're considering now, that's something I never thought about doing. And that's really our job. We're just that brand that you can't turn us off. You can't hang up on us. You can't click to the next thing or scroll to the next thing. We're right in front of you. And if I have the chance to captivate by not just introducing, but also really, I think, developing an authentic understanding, here's how we can do this, what we can do. But is this something relevant to you? That now there's a consideration. And when the consideration's there, whether it's now or later, we just increase the likelihood you've had a good experience and you'll buy at some point. Right. And that's really what our job is. And it's the most basic, honest, tried and true method of communication is direct.
Right.
All this other stuff is great. It's fancy. It's really cool. But there's nothing more powerful than sitting across from someone. When you really work to architect that experience for big brands, we take your brand, we take it right there in front of your addressable market, and we deliver it in a way with someone that is really polished and professional. That brand's going to stand out.
Well,
so that's what we focus on.
You're building the development of a brand, how they communicate,
yes,
and making them incredible.
That's it. We do it through people.
Wow. What do you feel like is the number one way that you can accomplish that?
I think quality, right? Quality of, I mentioned a discovery process that we go through with all clients to really understand if there's a true level of respect and balance, right? Balance and how the partnership can work. We take, funny enough, the same approach in the way that we look at people, right? Because if you look at
who's we,
when I say Trelevate, so in other words, when we look to find the right representation for one of our clients, right? You got to think about it. It's like sometimes can be a little bit confusing when I talk about a client that we represent and then a customer that we go service, right? So we can carry a big product, a big logo, but when we go into the marketplace now, our job is to find customers, right? So think about the delivery method. that person, I'm the person now going out, I've got this big brand, this big logo, I got to take this out to the marketplace, and I go to a customer, and my job is to build a certain level of one, identifying I've got competency. I've got the ability to talk through not just what we're offering, but how I can help your business. So there's got to be a certain level of business acumen, right? We do this when we interview clients. We do this when we interview people. So there's got to be a certain talk track. There's got to be an acumen. There's got to be the ability to tie together both critical thinking, but also in solution finding. And there's a competency that some people have or they don't. In other words, if I'm so salesy and pushy and I'm just trying to get your business, people pick up on that right away. You may do great selling products, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be great at building strong business relationships. So there's a certain competency that's critical. There's also a chemistry, right? There's the ability to connect in a way that people will say, wow, I wasn't thinking about that, but I'm thinking now about you because I'm interested in who you are. So that ability to create chemistry, right? That's something people have or don't have. Now, can it be taught? Can it be refined? Absolutely. Of course, you can refine it through training and curriculum. And that's a lot of stuff we provide at Trelevate. But that's also one of the greatest assets that we provide in our partnerships is we teach that in terms of how our people build chemistry in the marketplace. There's a character component, right? That you either have or you don't have. And I always look at that as a compass in terms of how are you serving the marketplace. If I'm serving my own interest, it's going to get picked up on real quick. If I'm serving your needs, there's going to be a consideration. If I'm serving my client who we're representing with, I think a real behavior that is do right or treat it as if it's your own, you build a different level of ultimately then commitment.
Right.
To the project, right? And if there's not a commitment, no one's rowing. We're not all rowing in sync. We don't meet our goals. And that always then really boils down to the culture of the organization. So we're really big at doing that, what we call our 5C process, right? Which is character, it's competency, it's chemistry, it's commitment, and it's culture. And when those things are all there, you have a match. But you have to overlay that, right, with not just the product you represent or the client you're working with. You got to overlay that with the type of person that's going to be representing it. So it's kind of like think about playing basketball or baseball. You can tell right away, based on the way they move, based on their shot, based on their throw, based on their swing. You can tell right away they've got natural tendencies that overlay perfect. Our job is to refine those skills. And that's why when you look at Trelevate and what we ultimately do, the industry, a lot call it sales outsourcing. A word's been around a long time. Most people don't even know what it is, right? We've taken sales outsourcing to a whole different level of professionalism by valuing and really implementing human capital management, right? And human capital management theory is the idea that you take two guys like us, we got lots of talent, there's lots of potential, but it has to be refined. Right. So how do you refine our skill? Education, knowledge, training, coaching, all those things that think of it like, hey, we're two baseball players, all the ability in the world, put on the right team, put with the right coach, our level goes to the next level, right? That's the way that we view people. So if we've got all this ability and we've gone through these steps, this 5C process overview, right, and we match up, the ability then to increase our value by training and coaching just goes to the whole next level. And that's what we implement for our partners.
Wow, that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. Ryan, it's irrefutable that the words and that strategy, the 5 C's that you're bringing to the table is going to benefit a business. It's irrefutable.
It has to benefit everybody, right? It's not just one. You don't create value by only serving one part of the partnership. It has to be holistic all the way around. It has to be for the client, a fit. It has to be right for the customer, a fit. It has to be right for your team, a fit. If those are in alignment, that's a values alignment. That's a winning formula.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be hearing from your counterpart, CEO of Trelevate, right after this quick break.
Get ready for some fun. It's going to get good here.
Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you. Great to spend time with you as always.
I got a few questions. I mean, you run a lot of the logistics behind the scenes. Tell me about that. Like, what makes you enjoy those logistics side?
So I run the company. So let's make sure we understand that. So from the CEO perspective,
Yep.
I co-create the vision
Mm-hmm.
with our president, right, my business partner. And then my role from that point is to take our vision and oversee and govern the departments to execute our vision, right? So obviously as a sales outsourcing company, talent selection company, sales enablement company, there's a lot of different departments that roll into those, feed up to generating the success that we need to attain for our clients and for us to be successful. And so it requires a lot of oversight, requires a lot of drive, energy. You have to really understand all the departments. You got to make sure you get the right people in the right places. You got to make sure that we stay on task. And everything for us is, it's based on cost of acquisition. There's a metric, there's a number, there's an activity metric, a sales metric, there's an ROI that our clients expect. And to govern that whole process and drive everybody's behaviors to attain that takes a lot of energy by both Ryan and myself. But from a CEO perspective, that's my main responsibility, is to make sure we stay on track as a company. We hit our goals. We have the resources necessary to not only hit our goals, but crush our goals for our clients. And for the most part, that's what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan is kind of vision, and then you guys partner in that.
Yeah.
But then you bring it from the vision to
and here's the great thing about Ryan and I. We both have done each other's roles in other businesses. So when we've developed and formed Trelevate, it was with the intention that we were going to kind of focus on the roles that felt more natural and that we could really excel at. Ryan's a gifted speaker. He's a gifted communicator. I tend to be more gifted and kind of putting everything together and executing and making it work, right? Yeah. So when you put both of us together, we allow our skill sets to work hand in hand together, and it really makes for a highly successful company.
That's awesome. Okay, so Trelevate, you guys, we operate in many different verticals, many different services. And me and Ryan just talked about that and the varieties, the strategies that go into place, the services and how they come together. And we got to share about how, Trelevate, we really package things well, and we find the right people to come into place in that packaging and help that to go out into the marketplace or to package and partner with businesses. How do you see, what's a misconception that people might think about when it comes to business or what the services that we offer?
The misconception about Trelevate is that not enough people know that there's a service out there that we provide like ours. Ryan and I joke all the time, there's not a boardroom in America where they don't want or need new customers. And their operational infrastructure just doesn't allow them to go get it because they're so focused on building their core product or service, whether it's a tech, whether it's a widget and distribution and so on and so forth. And then sales, they need sales, so they create a sales team, right? But their internal infrastructure from HR, recruiting, staffing, sales training, it's not geared towards then delivering high-performing sales inside of their company. So there's a lot of companies out there, when they do find out about us, they just want us to do the whole thing. They're just saying, hey, hire the people, then drive the sales, bring us the customers. If we can get in front of enough businesses that understand that there's a solution like this, we would be so busy we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves.
That's awesome. So when you have so much potential and you have a business that is really successful, but maybe their department in recruiting, training, staffing isn't as strong, that's where they start to falter and their cap of potential is set. Their ceiling has hit its limit. And that's where Trelevate comes in.
Yeah, their sales teams get broken, right? There's a lot of companies with multiple product lines, and their sales team develops a customer base over time, and they keep selling that same one product or service to that same customer base, but they don't want to position or know how to position the other products and services. So these companies work really hard on R&D and building other products and services, and their own existing sales team doesn't pitch those to the customer, right? So we can augment that. And companies have used us in the past to build a team to actually take those other products and services and go to a customer base and sell those, right? So that happens a lot internally to companies, right? So they're not selling the full suite of products and services that they have. They just don't know how to do it, or their team doesn't want to do it. There's a lot of companies that they got a one-size-fits-all rep that does all the hunting, the farming, the closing, the fulfilling, And, sometimes in those companies that are heavily fit, operationally focused on delivering something all the way through, when you got your sales team focused on other things other than getting in front of new prospects and customers, it takes away from your ROI, right? So companies need to understand that, hey, maybe putting a sales associate here, or product manager here, or somebody different that they can hand off and keep the person that's really, really good. You hired somebody that's really, really good at communicating with people, identifying needs, creating wants, being able to close business. But then they're saddled with other duties and responsibilities that keep them from doing what you hired them to do.
Right.
That's a problem with companies, right? Another problem with companies is there's so much bureaucratic red tape inside of large organizations that once they hire somebody, they can't really turn around and make a change if they quote unquote maybe hired a person that didn't quite fit in that organization or wasn't working, hitting the KPIs necessary, or wasn't grasping the value proposition. And that's where we come in a little bit differently, because we design our programs from our blueprint all the way through our 5-week blueprint through training. We design our programs to systematically get people successful, give them the right tools, equip them to be successful in the field. And we can manage that process fairly easy because our entire internal, our HR, our internal staffing team, we're always looking for new talent where we're not going to keep people that are unproductive on our teams. Our clients won't keep us if we're not producing at a high result or producing the ROI. And that's our job, what we have to do.
So when you're managing a team for another company, like Trelevate does often with a lot of different verticals, then there's a serious demand of our KPI, that return on investment, that ROI.
Correct.
And how you measure that performance to keep the stellar players in their position and then give them the resources to be better and expand.
Exactly. You gotta get your A team happy. You got to be able to incentivize your A team to be happy, and you got to create an environment and a culture that allows your A team to say, "Hey, this is a place I want to be. I want to invest my time," because it's a two-way street between the employer and the employee, right? And I don't even use employer-employee relationship. To me, we're all on the same team.
Yep.
And if our team members don't feel a part of the team or that they're growing with the team or feel, then that's okay. If we've done everything we can to help them, if they've done everything they can to be a part of the team, and at the end of the day, it's not a mix, we're not going to cry about it, but we're going to have somebody else ready to go that is, and they're going to have the time to go out and find something else that's more suitable for them, and that's okay.
Walk me through this, Paul. We offer services to a lot of different companies, different verticals. What's the same? What's the DNA that follows every single bit that only Trelevate brings?
Well, one is there's a couple of things. One is culture. Two is our pillars, right? Pillars 1 through pillar 4. But culture here is really, really important. A lot of companies talk about their culture. Hey, our people are our culture. We invest in our people. It's all about our people, and that's entirely true. But if you ask people what they do, how do they do it? That's where it's really hard to define what anybody's culture is, right? You sense it, you feel it on social media, you sense it being a part of the company. There's a word I learned out there from a famous softball coach, and the word is called mudita, M-U-D-I-T-A. And if you look that word up, that embodies our culture at Trelevate better than any. It's having vicarious joy in other people's successes. When you can build a company and a team and a culture around celebrating everybody else's success, you're going to be a successful company.
That's gold. That's awesome. That's so cool to hear about. I need to look that up. What's the word?
Mudita. M-U-D-I-T-A.
Mudita. That's really cool. And how do you see that? If someone
so I struggled, and I'm sure companies struggled. You have this culture, you're doing it, you're practicing it, but you never had a word that says, this is what our culture is about. And a few years ago, I was introduced to this word, and it makes total sense of what we said when Ryan and I put together the idea of Trelevate, built Trelevate. It was about taking care of our people. And that is the one word that's symbiotic or symbolizes exactly what our culture is all about.
Oh, that's huge. Okay, so if someone were to look at us from an outside coming in and saying, tell me about your culture. What is the culture of Trelevate? And you would say, oh, it's Mudita. And someone would say, how do you see that? What does that look like in the day-to-day for somebody?
We have a team. If you look at our group me's, if you look at how we celebrate people's wins and successes, our career development plan, everything we build inside of this company is built around growing people and then celebrating with them their success.
Yeah.
Enjoying that, having vicarious joy, actually being genuine and intentional, saying, hey, Bo, I'm happy for your success. And that's not fake. You can't fake that.
Yo. I was just on a call recently with somebody, and they were saying they were taking a look at our socials, and they were like, wow, the fact that you guys actually show your promotions and highlight your employees is huge. And sometimes you wonder if that's going to create like bad camaraderie between people, hygiene or anything.
It could be a couple of things, right? Some other people could get rubbed wrong, but it's nothing like being on a sports team and you got two people compete for second base and one beats the other one out. The other one that got beat out better figure out what they did to get beat out if they want that limelight. And then two is you better be, from a Mudita standpoint, really good teammate.
Right.
The other part of it is, look, when you put your successful people out there, you're basically saying, hey, here's our talent, and it's an open book for talent. But I'm less scared about that because we're finding you guys have built an incredible talent selection team where we're finding the most incredible people in all of our markets. I visited every one of our teams around the country this year already.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, every one of our teams, I've never seen such more dedicated, committed, sharper people representing our clients at one given time than I've done this for 13 years at Trelevate, nearly 30 years in my career, by a landslide. The quality of our people right now is as good as it's ever been. Wow. And it's still a tough hiring climate.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, it's still a fairly difficult hiring climate, and we're finding really, really talented people out there. And I think it's because of our culture. I think it's because of the opportunities that we create. I think it's because we invest in our team, and we're going to equip them with something maybe they didn't have before. We're going to give them some tools that they can take and be successful here. And if it's not here and they take it somewhere else, they take it somewhere else. But we're going to give them something they can carry with them for the rest of their lives. And then obviously we want them to be here because we need to grow organically for us to be successful with people that know who we are and how we do what we do well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Paul, is there anything that you would add on to say this is why Trelevate stands out on an executive top tier level?
Well, yes. I think from an executive top tier level, if I'm in a boardroom with a client, I think the biggest, I would say, if I'm on the other side, my biggest fear is trusting my brand into somebody else's hands. If I'm going to outsource my sales to another group that's been doing this for a long time, that has had no issues, great ratings online, hires nothing but the best people, does not have trouble, and they have produced high ROI, I still would have fear handing off the keys to somebody to represent my brand, right? Thinking I gotta whatever. But as a leadership team or as an executive team, the higher you go in executive leadership, the more you understand that you have to delegate, let things go, figure out how to be smarter about what we do versus trying to keep your hands around everything. I think is serving a lot of clients successfully, or a lot of potential companies out there, verticals or companies in different verticals are better off for doing this. I'll give you an example. Constellation Energy, they've adopted this philosophy over a decade ago of, instead of building this massive sales team in all the deregulated states for energy to procure power and gas, they've outsourced that to companies like Trelevate, right, to go out there and get their customers for them, because they understand that they can't move as fast as we can, and they're not skilled as skilled as we are in hiring, training, and developing speed to market sales team in any market around the country. We could do that within 30 to 45 days and then have the ROI back within 3 months after that, in terms of going through a ramp process, getting people through the blueprint, making sure we have the right players on the team, so on and so forth. Things we have to work out, a new program, we have to work out the sales process, we have to make sure the tools are right. A lot of things you have to when we first start a program, but a company like Constellation Energy is fully adopted outsourcing their sales to a group like us as their sales channel. And I think the more companies that understand that this is not just a viable, like this is a smart way to go out and get your customer base, the busier we're going to get. We just got to get in front of those C-level execs, and we got to get in front of these companies and let them know that there's a service out there like ours that does this.
Yeah, it's a game changer, 100%. Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I feel like we have unveiled a bit of the operations of why Trelevate's effective at what we do, the secrets behind it, and obviously I would just say hearing from our leader to know that this is something that you're passionate about, and there's a line that we're going to do it well. Mudita all the way.
Mudita.
That's awesome. Thank you, Paul. Come on.